Okay, all right. So this is Soloplexa. I don't know if it's going to be called Soloplexa Talks, Soloplexa Chit Chats, Soloplexa Q&A, whatever. But it's
Hmm.
Soloplexa. We're working to kind of create a community of solo artists that can become friends, do business, you know, buddy up, whatever they want. It's a free
Yeah, yeah.
exercise.
Back home we call it a gang.
A
You're starting a
gang,
gang.
yes. Yeah, I'm glad you said. So this is Gareth Freiheit, which Freiheit means freedom in
Freedom.
German.
Yeah, that's right.
I can really picture this guy as like Gareth Freedom singing some very glamorous 80s pop. Very, if he were uh, uh, a queer pop artist in the 80s, that would be Gareth Freedom would be amazing. I
It would
always have
actually.
great chats with this guy. He's a very interesting dude, very industrious, handsome, charming, and well, you said home, back home. So my first
Mhm.
question to you, and I also would like for you to talk a little bit about yourself. My first question to you, Gareth, is if you love Ireland so much, why the fuck did you move to London?
Why did I leave?
Whoa, 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 whoa,
Good
whoa, whoa.
question. Because okay, I'm really on the firing line now. Because any Irish people would be like, what? You got a problem with the you're not loyal to the soil? No, but look, I grew up in Munich, right? That's where the Freiheit thing comes from. And growing up in the city center of Munich, next to a police station down the road from the King's Cross of Munich train station,
Yeah.
Münchner Hauptbahnhof. Um, it was crazy. You know what I mean? Like I would go to sleep to the sound of like police sirens and drunks screaming,
Beautiful.
and I loved it. And it's a city of, I think the greater metropolitan area of Munich now is like 4 million people, right? Then when I was 8, I moved to suburban Dublin, and it was a big shock. There was no underground subway systems, there wasn't a bakery on every corner, it was just suburbia and fields. And it was pretty isolating. I was kind of struggled to sort of fit in. And I eventually really got to love Dublin, especially when I hit my teenage years and went through my goth phase. And I met some of the most amazing mates of my life. And I'm still friends with those guys to this day. But essentially, it's like downgrading to a smaller city. You are always yearning for that big city energy again.
Ah,
And I remember just visiting London, and it was like that feeling of like growing up in Munich amplified by 10. I love the integrated nature of the city, and just like the feeling that things were happening, you know what I mean? And yeah, Dublin's got an amazing music scene, but sadly, I mean, it's probably got something to do with Ireland formerly being part of the UK and how integrated our economies are anyway. But like Dublin is kind of like, my sister actually runs a night called Satellite Towns. And Irish people see London as a satellite town of Ireland in a way. It's just that's where you can get your art seen by the most amount of people. So as much as Dublin is a great place,
sure.
it's held back by its size.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, when you think of the truly global cities like Paris and London and New York and stuff like that, it's a numbers thing, you know.
Yeah, it is. It is. What's the impact when you moved to London? Did it change the way you approach songwriting? Because, Soloplex is about us having a laugh, of course, but it's also, I want it to be as helpful as it can for other people when they're watching this. So, as much tips or, tricks or whatever thing we can share with people, I think that's going to be really beneficial for everyone. So, did coming to London change the way you write? How do you write these days? Do you have a routine, or each song is a different animal? Tell us about it.
Yeah, I think that like I basically write the same as I always have. I don't, I basically will create a drum beat. A lot of the time I'll listen to like some of my favorite songs from my favorite albums. Like I love the Cribs, and I love Phoenix's early stuff. It's Never Been Like That is one of the greatest indie pop kind of albums, indie rock albums of the 2000s. And I'd find like a lively beat, and then I'd emulate it on the drum rack in Ableton, and then I just start playing chords over it. And once I have the chords down, Then I start putting a bass line down, and then I start putting the lead guitar down, and then it's just like I didn't realize because it turns out in pop music, they got this thing called top line writers, and when the whole song's been produced, the vocalist comes in and then just vibes out to the whole tune and then starts singing over it. And I used to experiment with writing the vocals first and then building the song around it, and I just found that process always failed because what would happen is I would have this amazing vocal line, and then I would record. I would then write the song, based on those chords, and then the rhythms and the melody, the rhythms and the harmonies or whatever you want to call it of like the lead guitar, all of a sudden just were completely clashing with the vocals, and then I'd end up having to write a new top line vocal over it anyway. So yeah, I've got a real bottom up approach, like bass, rhythm, and drums forming the core of it, then the lead guitar, and then the vocals generally. That's just and it doesn't have to be that way. You can definitely write the vocals first and then write the lead guitar around it. I've done that a few times, but it's just that usually I put the instruments away and then I step into the vocal booth. So that's why all the instrumentation tends to come first. But rhythm is the core of it, and then everything else is harmony.
You're stating facts, because I've struggled so much with melody ideas and lyric parts, and then I want to turn that into a song, and sometimes it works, but it's the hard path to choose. I mean, if you'll have a much simpler and easier time, and the song will probably be better if you build it from the beat up. Every time I do that, it fucking works. Not every time I do the opposite works. Okay, so you've been recording for a while, putting music out. This is something like a personal question of mine, like something I'm really interested these days. Like, so you get to a point where you just you hit it differently. You get call it a lucky streak after 15 years doing it, or you're just super inspired and you fucking nail it and you write the best material you've ever written. Do you keep doing what you've been doing, or you approach it differently? Do you trust what you're doing now to the point where if you run into an amazing song, we feel it's amazing, but we feel very connected to our own music. We like it a little bit more than the next guy. Of course, it's our baby. But
everyone likes to smell their own farts,
Exactly.
Not others.
But if you like, if you get to a point where you say, okay, this is the real shit, what do you do? Just put it on Spotify with thousands and thousands and thousands of songs uploaded by the minute, or you just treat it a little differently? And if so, how would you do it?
Well, that kind of goes into the whole thing about like PR. I'm about to drop a music video actually, and I had to put the song on ice. Because I realized that like I had a really good music video and a really good song that I was buzzed about, and I was about to just release it without doing any work, and I thought, you know what, I'm actually going to hold off, and I'm going to scour the internet and reach out to people, and I'm going to build up as many email addresses as I can, and I'm going to try and promote the shit out of this song. So I guess if you're really like buzzed about something, don't just drop it and put it out there. I've put out stuff that I'm really proud of, but without the right channels promoting it, really no one's going to hear it. It's not like the early days of the internet where maybe you could go viral organically. Generally, the entire internet now is like a high street. You can't just open a stall and start selling stuff. Like you're going to get shut down. And with the internet now, it's not that you're going to get shut down. It's just that you're going to get frozen out. Algorithms aren't going to look at you. Like if you drop a video on YouTube and you don't get a certain amount of hits in the first couple of days, YouTube buries it. So you really need to get blogs and stuff. I'm probably not the right person to talk about this. There's probably way better PR tutorials on YouTube. But
do they work though? Do they? I believe that if everyone does the same thing, then that very thing is gonna just be one thing that YouTube buries now, because it's just a gimmick,
There's always, you just gotta basically. There's always people figuring out how to game the system, and then the system has to figure out how to stop people from overwhelming it. That's basically what SEO is, search engine optimization.
Yeah.
It's gaming Google, and then Google changes the algorithm, and then you have to figure out how to game it again. And like, the thing is, a lot of musicians are out there and they're doing great work, but they're not promoting their stuff, and then that's why the PR companies do so well, because they know how to actually game the system and get you a couple of thousand hits and get you a bit of press and stuff. And it's a necessary evil. You could spend 500 quid to $2,000 just promoting something, and it's that's one of the ugly truths about it. One thing that I can say is that if you can, just keep building a loyal following by playing live and staying recognized in your neighborhood, in your local scene, that's super important. Even I've played gigs that felt like, okay, I didn't get any likes on Instagram out of this, but I met another musician who wants to interview me on a podcast, or
there you go, yeah,
or they have a radio station.
I have a snare there.
You are.
I have a snare there, but
so
go on.
Yeah, it's you just got to do it all. Like, even if it's a pain in your ass, doesn't matter. That's just, this is the job that you've taken on, and there's certain rules, and you just got to get on with it. And yeah,
I love that you said you need to play live, because this is also something that interests me. And we might get a little philosophical here, but we always do when we're talking, me and this one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I have this constant struggle with when is a song at the pinnacle of its existence? What is a song like? Because you said performing live, and I used to have a chat with this songwriter that she used to say, no, because I'm always like, the recording is the thing for me. I'm a music producer, so that's the recording. That's it. That's where the song exists. And then what happens afterwards when we're playing live? It's really nice, but it goes, it taps back to the recording, because everyone had to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're just like a pure songwriter, you say, yeah, but the recording is like, you can have multiple recordings of the song we wrote. So the songwriting is the pinnacle of it. It's the essence. This is where shit gets real. And if you're a performer, you're like, no, the perform. And this is actually the cheesy answer that everyone chooses. Like, no, the song comes alive when we're playing live. That's the whole, mystical aspect of. And then but. And then I don't know the answer, but I want to throw this on your lap and see what you think about this, like songwriting, recording, performing. Which is what for you?
Well, it's kind of like the chicken and egg, in the sense that either a song was written, like singer-songwriters, for instance, they really come alive on stage, and you could say like Mick Christopher singing "Hey Day," in a the back room in Whelan's in the year 1999 in Dublin. Like, nothing will ever match that energy, although that said, his debut album Skylarkin was phenomenal. They did a great job. It's a classic album in Ireland, but like, he is a singer-songwriter, and therefore going into the studio must have been quite daunting for him, because he's like, shit, how do I get these songs now to sound so good in the studio? But then there's guys like us who maybe thrive more in the studio. And like, for me, I remember when Hot Chip were doing an interview, and they said that they had recorded this whole album, and now they have to figure out how to cover it.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going on tour. They did it all in the studio, and then you're like, how do we actually like bring this?
How do we make
it
sound nice live?
Yeah, so you're always either you're recording it in the studio, or you're writing it, in a live setting. And you're trying to bring it, I think it's always one or the other. It's one's always going to, you're always either going to be trying to bring the energy to one side or to the other side.
Yeah, because this person I used to talk to, she was too crazy about going to gigs, about live records. And I'm like, you know what? Live records never really appealed to me. I've liked the
live records are I'm fairly certain, I was even reading an article last week about how live records were just a way to get money, out of fans. There's no real point in live recordings. They're full of overdubs anyway.
Exactly. So it's not live. First of all, it's not live.
Even Tin Lizzy's Live and Dangerous, it's full of overdubs. The only real true good live album is probably like fucking MTV Unplugged, or maybe that really famous live album, Peter Frampton Comes Alive. That's
Well, but then again, it is Peter
all I
Frampton.
know is that it's like it's like the second biggest selling album after Thriller.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think like, well, it's not live per se. You're not at the venue, so you're not having the experience. You don't have the recording as it was, carefully thought out and developed. So you have nothing. You don't have like,
You just got like a shittier version of the album.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah,
I was listening
people
to
in the background.
I was listening to like a Delicate Steve. I don't know if you've listened to him. He's a American guitarist, really good. And
No, I don't know.
he had a live album, and it was just a bit jarring, like hearing him play the guitar, just the way it was being picked up. You could hear the pick hitting off the strings. It didn't sound very nice. Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. I just went and listened to the studio version instead.
I'd much rather do that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'll keep asking that because I want to find the answer. I don't know if anyone's going to give me.
No, it's a good question. It's a good question, and like the fact, I couldn't give a definitive answer. I kind of gave you two answers, So I'd be interested to hear what future guests have to say.
Yeah. So, and then the last one, maybe, I don't know.
Mhm.
We have time, but maybe the last one, because there's also the tricky ones. Like, do you think you should write, like, you have this thing where, in Motown, they used to have teams working on songs every day, 9 to 5, like, oh, come on, team A, team B. You think you have to have like a one song a day ethos, like, well, it's quantity, man, come on. Or you should just fucking like wait for the muse, wait for inspiration, take your time. There's input time, there's output time. There's times in your life where you'll be, compelled to go to your instrument and write. What's your thing? Like, you believe in forcing yourself or just enjoying the process?
Well, look, creativity is a lot like a fart. If you have to force it,
This is going to be the caption of this video.
If you have to force it, it's probably shit, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, it's, the thing is, like, creativity is you, interpreting the world around you. It's you channeling, yourself, and therefore, like, you're doing it because you want to do it, right? So, like, if you, for instance, like, Prince probably and Frank Zappa, they just loved spending 16 hours a day doing this. In the studio, that was it. They couldn't stop, and that's how they were hardwired. Me, I like to write. I write short stories. I like to make documentaries. And I couldn't do music all day every day. As much as I love it, there comes I need to do something else, or do I just need to watch Sopranos and sit on my couch? It's about sort of not pushing anything, and finding that balance and doing what it is that you want to do. I mean, Kid Cudi, I was listening to a podcast with him. Kid Cudi, for anyone who was around when Man on the Moon came out in 2008, that was just a fucking seminal album. And he said that he writes comics, in his downtime, keeps him fighting fit, keeps his creativity flowing. So, like, some people, I think it was Gemma Hayes, an Irish singer-songwriter, she was trying to record a second album, and it took her quite a long time by the sound of it. And she struggled, and she said, maybe I've only got one album in me. It's like, you could just like go through, some musicians have what they call a purple patch, where Elliott Smith had his purple patch, where he did like EXO and I'm going to forget all the names now. Figure Eight, and From a Basement on a Hill and stuff. And he just hit his stride, and he was blasting the music out. It all depends. You could just be in the perfect position to just churn music out, and you just do it. Or you could need a break. Sometimes, I remember one time I got really fed up with music, and I didn't touch anything for 3 months. I wrote a song that I thought was particularly bad. That I'd spent 50 hours. I spent a whole week just on this one song, and I wasn't happy with the results. And then I just walked away from music.
You quit.
musicians can get so melodramatic, and
Yeah, yeah.
and then I listened back in it 3 months later, and it wasn't even that bad. And uh, yeah, I think that's it. It's just highly subjective, and if you wake up every day with anxiety about not creating enough, you're probably going to chase that away anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
that's a good point, man. That's a good point.
yeah, yeah,
I love the story about Bob Dylan's son, Jacob Dylan. That he wrote that very like successful album, "Bringing Down the Horse," and then he was like, "Oh, I need to take a." He was like in a very raspy, like, "Oh, I need to take a break now because what am I going to write about? Am I going to write about being on tour? That's very unsexy. I need to take a break." And then he took a break and he never wrote anything like "Bringing Down the Horse" ever again. It's like, oh fuck, lost it.
maybe hey, listen, not everybody's voice needs to be heard either. Like some people, they're like, oh, I can't think of anything, and that's fine. Maybe that's not what you're meant to be doing either. I like, yeah, it's like,
But it's interesting because but well, not by the same token, but the
not that
opposite.
everybody's voice doesn't need to be heard. That sounds very harsh.
Oh, you
I
said
just
it. I don't
like,
care.
it's just like, yeah, you don't need to just force something that's not there. It's kind of what I.
But look, I gave the example of Jacob Dylan, and now I remember the Seinfeld. There's like this was like 5 years ago. A guy asks him, "Well, why do you keep doing this though? You're like tremendously successful. You're like the best to ever do it, maybe. Why do you keep doing it?" He said, "You know what? I keep doing this because I'm afraid that if I stop, I won't be able to do it again."
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see the opposing versions, and it seems like when you analyze both stories that Seinfeld is right here because he's still doing it. Jacob Dylan could never repeat it.
He's
So
not doing it. Yeah. But like, in another sense, because I kind of went through periods of not writing, and then it comes back to you as well. So like I tried to sack off music. I think I was like 27, and I thought that was like really old at the time. And I was like, well, if I haven't
by that time,
if I haven't made a decent go of this music thing, then what's the point? And then I would walk away from music, and then it would sort of like, I would just start gravitating back towards it. I'd be like, hey, maybe if I just like made this kind of beat, what if I just did this kind of music? And what if I, and it just kind of kept on pulling me back in, so if it doesn't pull you back in, that's absolutely fine as well. I personally tried to ditch music. I found it very stressful, not being able to sort of find, for whatever reason, it's just like music didn't really start popping off for me until the last 2 years, and I guess like, yeah, there's what can I basically thought that music was that part of my life was over, and then I sort of just ended up getting pulled back into it, and now it's like working out again. So yeah, I don't really know.
It's hard to shake off, man.
You can't force it. It's like I didn't even have a say in the matter or something.
Life could be like a lot simpler without music, but also a lot more dull and bland and depressing, and
Oh God, yeah. I remember working these like whack 9 to 5 jobs, and like whenever I did start a band, all of a sudden like the 9 to 5 jobs were like 100% more tolerable. I would skip into work and I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna have band practice after this. This is great. I had purpose, you know what I mean? And I'm sure that my bosses, their purpose was like busting my balls. They were like, oh, this is great. Can't wait to just come in and just fucking ask Gareth about his productivity levels, but like having some sort of creative outlet, that does make a lot of bullshit tolerable.
That's it. And that's, in the end, man, it doesn't really matter. No one knows what's going to happen. You could be hit by a bus, or you could become a millionaire in the next 3 months because, no one really cares. Nothing matters. It all could change. So you have to enjoy the fucking process.
I wonder if bus drivers like ever get pissed off at like the bus slander. You know what I mean? Getting hit by a bus is a very common thing, and like bus drivers are like, hold on a second, if you check
whoa. I love that.
We hardly ever hit
have a bus driver on and say, hey, bro, have you how many indie musicians have you killed in Hackney?
Yeah.
Okay, just the final part now, just a kind of a lightning round. So 3 desert island records. Come on. You can do it.
Oh, this is actually quite easy.
Okay.
Because I've been quite locked into these albums for you. Oh shit! Hold on. Okay, I was gonna say, okay, so the Cribs' first album, that album just fucking. It was. I was listening to that album the moment my megabus arrived at Victoria Coast Station for the first time, and I was like, I just moved to Leeds. I was studying music production, and I was getting a megabus that I bought for £1, right back in the £1 megabus days, and I was going into London, and I think I just started my first indie band, and it all seemed possible. In hindsight, starting an indie band in 2012 is like starting a fucking disco band in 1982. Like, there was no appetite for it. It was tough, but like, at least now, 10 years later, people actually listen to the indie music again, and that's another thing. Even if your music isn't relevant now, just keep at it. Don't switch up and change genres. Even Anderson .Paak, he was turning down features to be on DMX fucking choruses, and he was like, no, that's not my style. But eventually neo soul and R&B came back, and he was ready, like 33 when he fucking popped off. So anyway, that the Cribs' first album. Then, as I mentioned, Phoenix's It's Never Been Like That, fucking amazing indie rock album. I was listening to it. They say Bonaparte apparently said, to understand the man, you need to understand what was happening in the world when he was 20. I'll probably say, like, to paraphrase, is like, to understand someone, you just need to understand kind of like, where they were at like in their early 20s, For me, I was coming home from Soundwave Festival in Croatia, and I was like winding through the fucking rocky sort of highways of Croatia, listening to this album. And, I was about to begin second year of uni, and it was around the same time that I got listened to the Cribs' first album. So that's why they've been etched into my mind, and I think they've really, influenced my songwriting. And then the third one, it's a toss-up between Tupac's Me Against the World and The Hurting by Tears for Fears. Because
I'll go with Tupac.
Yeah, I think I'll probably go with Tupac. Actually, I will, because of his messages. He's got a lot of songs about unity, about respecting your mother, stuff like that.
Amazing.
It just,
my God.
And also he kind of just talks about like vulnerability quite a lot. The Hurting by Tears for Fears, great album, but it doesn't have really as much message. Just a bit of a vibe.
It is.
But yeah, so
Tupac's like, and that voice, man, fucking hell, amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So
do I say, or do I say All Eyes on Me? Tupac's greatest hits.
Yeah.
It's got the bangers from both of them.
It's pretty good. All right, cool.
Yeah.
This has been great. We're being kicked off by Zoom Incorporated, because we're not going to upgrade. We don't have money to upgrade.
No, that would be really not in line with our aesthetic as struggling artists if we had any more of these fucking subscription services. But
thanks for your time, my man. It's always a pleasure. This was actually a second meeting in the day. Beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. And all right, I hope people go and check your music out, because you're very talented.
And I can't wait as well to do more shows with Soloplexa, where everyone in the room is there for acoustic music, and everyone just like tuned in and really just like took in the music.
Paying attention.
Usually you can hear, a lot of chit chat, and you're kind of in the corner. This was like very sort of meditative space. Everyone was really, really just vibing out to the tunes. So yeah, can't wait.
It's really special. Well, we'll have more stuff coming up for sure. Mm-hmm.